David,
There we
how you
go.
doing
Let's
today?
let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, let's
So,
start off. We were just kind of small talking before we did this. You and I both have our podcasts. You and I both connected a few months back, and we just love chatting with each other, bouncing things off. And so we decided to essentially just do this on a more regular basis. You had a
yeah.
really interesting question you just kind of asked. So go ahead, kind of elaborate on that.
So basically, the overview is like the long-term careers, right? For me, I'm a very young. Well, I still call myself kid. I'm a 21-year-old male that is still developing, still learning, still developing interest in where I want to take my life, and I'm in a kind of interesting and advantageous position where I can go ahead and do my own thing, but I also value a lot of the wisdom and information and lessons that I can get from other people. And know I'm a valuable asset for anyone that I really step like into or partner with or work for or sell for. So I have a lot of skill sets that people need. And I know that I nowhere close the level that I, can be at, essentially, with, how everything is going currently. I was just wondering, if I should keep doing my own thing and eventually build that up, which for me, looking at how everything's been going, I might not be ready for that yet, but rather, go ahead and learn with someone else. Because with everyone that I meet, I always come from a perspective of, well, I don't know what I'll be able to learn from you. I know that I can learn a lot. All I know that I can control is that, hey, I'll provide you everything that, I can, and everything that you need, and find solutions that you might be looking for yourself, and learn everything that you know, right? And then I can take that with me for lifetimes. And that's wisdom and business knowledge and everything else.
Yeah. And I think it's a really powerful question. Really, the one thing I love about you is you're really the look inside yourself and to discover, hey, what should my next steps be? I think is really profound. And truthfully, I don't think there is a right answer to tell somebody. I think there's a right answer for every single individual, though. My whole life, I've always had that entrepreneur mindset. I saw my mom have that entrepreneur aspect. My dad was very much a corporate, and he's still very corporate. My older brother's corporate, my younger brother's corporate. I have that entrepreneur aspect. One thing I realized, I'm an amazing entrepreneur as well. And so every job I essentially, 90% of the jobs I had have always worked with someone that owned their business, not a corporation. Now, as I went through my life and career, like if I go back to my early 20s is when I started really getting into health and wellness. And the entrepreneur aspect side of me loved the aspect that I could start my own business inside another business entity, right? Because helps bring people right to you. There's a lot of benefits to that. Also, it gave me time to earn money as I was developing my skills and getting better and better and learning from people around me also. And I think that growth mindset, obviously you have that, hey, I want to develop a bunch of skills. I want to get better in these skills. And starting your own business can be really scary because you have to wear a bunch of different hats. Now, just as an example, right now I'm partnered with somebody. I'm not doing my own offer anymore, but it's something I probably will get into in the future again. Now, one thing I'm always looking at improving my skill set. So that's why I'll invest in someone's coaching program for like sales or marketing, branding, those type of key skills. You and I were talking the other week, and I was kind of telling you too, I going through a program to speak better and to present better. And so starting on that journey as well. Now, ironically, earlier this week, I saw someone's ad popped up and it caught my attention. And that is something I would like to learn. This is someone I possibly like to hire. learn their aspect because they have 50 years of corporate experience. When it comes down to branding, marketing, really understanding, frameworks and key aspects of building a really powerful brand. Like he's been very integral in some businesses where he's gone in, changed their brand, and in 24 hours, their stock market, their stock had gone up like $20 per share, like overnight, and generated like billions of dollars, right? Just by his aspect of changing a brand. And I thought that, hey, this is someone I would like to learn from. I decided to book a call. Strangely enough, he was actually the one that was on the phone call with me. I expect to be a sales rep and that sort of thing. He was actually the person on the call. 15 minutes into the call, he started asking me questions. We ended up, instead of having a 30-minute meet and greet call, we ended up having an hour and a half discussion where he was asking me if I would be interested in possibly coming working for him. Now we have a follow-up here later today to go through some more of those details. Now, the reason why I'm bringing some of these pieces up, because looking at where you're at in your life, like where do you want to go? There's decisions made, because part of the reason to go work with him is to learn from him, make some money at the same time. I'm growing my skill, all of those pieces. And like I said, I have no problem being an entrepreneur. I actually really enjoy that as well. And so I don't look at it as like some employee mindset, like I'm building someone else's dream. I'm actually building my dream inside of someone else's business, and you can scale yourself up there. And I think we've talked about that. Some offers where you're starting brand new, it's not a bad offer if you're going to be learning things, developing things, helping that business grow, because that's like growing your own business. So to kind of answer your question, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think what you have to really do is look at what skills do I want to learn? What do I want to be doing? Does it make sense for me to start my own business or go work for somebody to get better in this situation, or to learn the skill or be part of this environment for whatever reason it may be? And that can be a very powerful place. Majority of the times that I've learned things, it was either through my self-study or working with somebody that kind of essentially brought me on and became a mentor to me. Right? So essentially I was paying for their knowledge with my time. They were paying me for the results I was bringing to the business. And so it's a very positive mutual type of relationship, right? And so with you, I guess, looking at your career, you've got, I've got 20 years ahead of you. That's one thing I'm going to tell you is I went from working inside a business as a personal trainer, working up to a sales manager, working up to a general manager, then did health insurance sales out of a call center, then went managing another clinic, and then I opened up my own business, and I moved online. And so all of these things have progressively grown and grown and grown. Not even to mention, my multiple years in the restaurant industry and service industry as well. So each place I was at, I was learning something, getting better with something. Normally within 18 to 24 months, I would always get really, really squirrely at a younger age, from like 15 to 24. And I realized what that is. I'm getting squirrely because I'm not growing, I'm not getting better. So that's really where I started self-developing myself. Okay, what do I want to learn next? What do I want to learn next? And so I've been on that path. Now, I don't know where your goals and what your career looks like going forward and where you want things to be. But it sounds like there's a part of you that goes, I want my own business. And that sounds really exciting to some people, just like marketing. If we look at sales reps, for example, hey, make 10, 20K a month working 2 hours a day from any beach on the planet you want, right? It's an exciting thing until you realize what that grind really looks like, what you really have to do, the hats you have to juggle, all of those pieces. Now, I'm not saying that to go, oh, don't jump in and start your own company, because either way, if you're working for somebody else, you're grinding too.
Yep.
So I guess you have to weigh out the positive and negatives. And so looking at, I know that you and I were messaging all week long, and you were saying, hey, oh my gosh, you put a post out the other day of, hey, I was out fishing for 18 hours. I wasn't on phone at all. And I come back and there's messages galore and there's opportunity everywhere. This is awesome, blah, 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 blah. So did some of those opportunities really stick out to you? Like, I want to go do that? Or was it just that new shiny object syndrome? And I think that's one thing you have to kind of look at. So does that kind of help answer that a little bit?
It does. And I think this conversation will develop and will get clear towards the end. I think the first thing is, I don't think it's shiny object syndrome.
Good.
Based on the fact that all of the opportunities that have, come my way essentially is, are roles that really haven't been advertised at all, right? It has just been created from a conversation.
Yeah.
Just like any sales conversation, we uncover what is there and we make someone see themselves outside of the current bubble. And you just solidify and put together like a solution of, all right, so this might be the solution. And that solution, whenever you're talking to someone else, they will instantly assume that you are the solution. You're talking about yourself. So those opportunities coming to me are essentially from those conversations. And I think what I uncover, obviously there are so many different problems and challenges and struggles within a business, but from what I know and everything that I talk about is obviously something that I want to, get into, is of interest to me, like recruiting. I've been giving tons of feedback to a sales recruiting company, and they've always come back to me saying, hey, this is really good. We've seen these type of results. We've seen this and this and this. And I think all of that, compared to kind of the journey that I've already been on, like sales, for example, like where I started sales is from the agency world. I started from the digital marketing agency world in 2020. 7 months in, I sold some clients, I ran my own marketing. Boom. I got hit with the finances. I suck at finances, but hey, I love sales. So let's learn sales. Yep. Now, after 2 years doing sales, it's like, all right, I love business. I've loved business from the very start, but it took 2 years to learn sales. So I started business and I've had the sales conversations, right? I've had the conversations with clients. I can probably enroll 2 by next week. But a part of me is also, looking at things of saying, hey, I've now learned sales. I know how I can approach, talk, network, and enroll people. But I'm still kind of, well, even if I can, should I? Because I know there's so much potential left. And I feel like I've been in business now for seven months again, pivoting offers and, realize there's a way bigger space of knowledge, like a sea of knowledge in marketing that I don't know of, that I've, battled with a long time to get this moment where I've had 2 conversations now that are looking very positive. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, all right, so before it was sales that was the problem. Now it's marketing. But I also have a huge interest for, sales consulting in terms of teams and being the sales manager myself, for that matter, and recruiting. I love leadership. I love training. I love mentoring. I love showing up as that person. And I've had really good results doing that, but I've never taken credit. Yeah. I've just done it out of my own goodwill as a sales rep. People reach out. I stand up for people. Other colleagues right next to me. But I've never taken credit for anything. So now I'm at a position of, hey, I can, if I have the vision for the role and where I would like to go next, I have the ability to, first of all, create the role, but also when the role is created, jump into the role and also develop on those areas, which is sales consulting, for example, and recruiting and more training and leadership.
While you were kind of explaining some of that, I start leaning towards you may be working with somebody. Now, I don't want to push you in that direction and not do your own, right? The reason why, like what you were kind of saying there and some of the things that you were talking about, things that you would do, things that was all about creating. So that's awesome, right? Now, the big thing is too, I think it was in the first time I interviewed you, we kind of talked about And it was after the interview, you and I talked for about another 30, 45 minutes. And we were kind of coaching on some things. And both you and I were like, oh, geez, why wasn't that recorded? That was fire for both of us, right? And I kind of was talking about you working with a business partner. And I said, have you guys had the trust conversation yet? Knowing that your business partner is going to think of you first, business second, them third, and are you doing the same back and forth? And so looking at, you could possibly take a role with being completely honest with that business owner. Hey, I do consulting on the side as well.
Yeah.
Right. So you never have to really always limit yourself. Now, the other side of that coin could sometimes be you've got one foot in one side of the aisle, another in the other side of the aisle. Some people can't function that well. Now, with your monk mode, I know that you have the potential to be very successful that way. But you can also be building and growing yourself inside, helping somebody else grow their business, be building your skills, be building their business, setting those pieces up. So then eventually you can be transferring those skills over. Then if you're a consultant for somebody, you can come in, knock it out in 4 hours and go here, boom, 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 whatever that might look like, right? Before you start kind of your own business, because you brought up the sales piece and then the marketing piece.
Yeah.
Now, those all kind of go hand in hand to become successful. And that's where some businesses fail. It's the marketing piece, the running of the ads, or whatever it may be, organic outreach, but also the messaging. So there's a lot of pieces that need to be really perfected there. And when you talk about recruiting, that's a pretty broad, open area and a lot of people in that space. So how can you stand out? We've had that discussion, but so I don't want to really kind of sit there at all.
Yeah.
I want to bring one thing up here real quick. As we're kind of discussing this, you always see interviews of people like Warren Buffett, these very successful people, right? And on interviews, people always ask, so, if there's one thing you could tell somebody to be successful, what would that be? And they're like, chase your passion.
Yep.
How good is it? Like that piece of advice? Do you think that's a good piece of advice?
I'd say no.
Why?
No.
Why?
It's all in the mindset, right? Like mindset is the foundation of everything, like the foundation of success, how anyone view the world, really, like the foundation of like how emotions are created. Some people can see, this piece of content. Some people find it, inspirational. Some people get fed up. It's all based on mindset. So whilst everyone have different realities that we see the world or how the world is perceived, the word, right? Foundation of perception as well. Like some people from like other perceptions and other stories that they tell themselves, might not like interpret, like chase your passion like Warren Buffett would.
Yeah.
And if that alignment is off, well, it doesn't freaking matter.
And looking at I always, whenever I hear that, it's a PC answer, chase your passion, right? Because they truthfully can't say, well, I'm smarter than you, I'm better than you, I've worked harder than you, I'm further along than you, I can automate quicker than you, I can delegate faster than you with larger teams and spend more money than you. You might as well just give up and walk away because you can't beat me, right? So they're giving a PC answer, which goes off chase your passion. And so in reality, they're telling people, go just chase your emotional high. Yeah. Which you and I both know that in business, if you're chasing emotional highs and you're making decisions on emotions, you are going to fail really, really fast or be really struggling throughout the whole process. And just like use an example, like you're getting a new passion of fishing.
Exactly.
Right. So do you quit everything and start becoming a professional fisher person?
Oh, no.
Why? Why not chase your passion? Right.
24 hours in a day. I
Right.
got hours.
Well, because you're like, if I chase that passion, I'm not going to make any money. Right. Like, yeah, exactly. So always chasing your passion isn't always the smartest thing. It also takes out variables like what is your skill set? What are your abilities? And looking at that, so what is your skill set now? What are your abilities right now? I think looking at those pieces and what makes most sense to where does that fit? Does that fit me working with somebody else? Or does that mean me doing my own business? Now, the other thing there, again, looking at working for somebody else, I've turned down a lot of offers because I don't just want to be a cog in the wheel.
Yeah.
I have no problem just doing sales. Like, hey, I'm just boom, 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 knock that out. But that's not my plan for the next 5 years of my life. And that's not something that excites me. And knowing that I would do that for 6, 8 months and then start hating my life, and that's not fair to anybody. Right. And so looking at the right offer fit or the right business to step into to be working with, that you're able to do some of that entrepreneur stuff is can sometimes satisfy your skill set, what excites you, what drives you. And
Yeah.
you've got the self-discipline and skill set and ability to, like, as you said, work, talk with the business owner. Here's what I'm going to build out, make a role for yourself and help them grow their business. That's a huge asset for them. If you become a business owner, you will hire people as well. And smart business owners, and this is something I learned through management my whole life in leadership, if I'm not hiring or bringing up somebody that's better than me, I'm failing. And a lot of business owners are scared to look at it that way, like, oh, this person now is going to become better than me. No, it pushes you up another level because now they can take over another spot. So a smart business owner is going to talk with you and go, oh, geez, I need to bring David on to do this so I don't have to. So now I'm basically delegating it, automating it, rather than me trying to do it myself. And you've got the extreme skill set to do that. And it still gives you the opportunity to be a leader, to build, to create. And so that's where some of the decisions you have to kind of decide in that area, because some people's passion, again, isn't to own a business.
Yep.
And if you don't have a passion to own a business and don't have the reasons to put in the time or have the resources to make it work, there's no sense in always doing that. Now, it's not a, hey, don't ever do that. I think people should always take opportunities and do, but I think you have the ability to actually do both at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm, you know, like, I think running the business on the side is like no problem in terms of, because I've done so much groundwork to get me to where I'm at now in terms of like intensity. I spoke with someone, earlier this morning, and he's been doing remote sales for 2 years. And he's still, I don't agree with that mindset, but if it works for him, it works for him. He's still wishy-washy with, the goals and vision. And, hey, I might get this role, but hey, I'm not gonna lose 2 hours of sleep. What? I'd take that role any day. And I've had, this role for 3 months now, where I do 4 hours a day, get in, get out, sometimes 3, because I'm so efficient. And then I have 2 other projects running, a community plus a company.
Yeah.
As well of that. There is so much that can be, I can be more efficient, like more than what I am today. There's so much room to growth, and I see the gap, right? Because when you see the gap, you can develop and get better. So where the entire thing came in, where, all right, so let me take up maybe like an entire full-time gig, working in either sales consulting, helping a sales recruiting agency build up, or joining sales and lead a team.
Yeah.
All of that is like available to me in terms of time and resources. It's just, does it align with everything else, just like you mentioned, in terms of like vision and stuff?
Yeah.
Well,
And you have to kind of make a, Alex Ramosi, when he first started Gym Launch, right? He had a coach and was talking with that coach because he was looking at gyms he could make that successful, looking at chiropractic office could make that successful, and there were like a couple other ones. And his coach said, dude, you've got to pick one. right? Because he was doing okay, but not until he picked one and got laser focused on that is when he took off and got really successful.
Yeah.
And sometimes in the situation that you're at, and I think you're asking the questions about like, hey, I've got all these things over here. Do I want to continue this path, or do I want to bring something else in the mold? You bring something else in the mold, you might have to let certain things go. And sometimes our ego gets in the way of that, of, hey, I'm building this. And if I go and do this, I have to step away from that. And it's kind of like, oh, you know, it could be a fear of failure or whatever the emotional attachment is, but sometimes we have to take a real logical approach, which makes most sense. Now, the other thing is if the thing over here, sometimes you just put it up on a shelf for a second. You didn't throw it in the garbage. You just put it on the shelf. Why? Because you're going to go step over here. This is going to elevate you up here. So now when you are here, you are going to elevate them together a lot higher.
Yeah,
So
that's exactly what I'm thinking. You know, putting it. I like the way that you said it. Put it on the shelf, because that's almost like an analogy. In my mind, I said pause, right? And pause has kind of like a negative stigma to it, but like putting it on the shelf, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, right? Because I want to approach sales consulting. I love every aspect of it. I love that it's so broad, and eventually grow into almost like a CRO position where I can step into any company and, you know, analyze and, you know, be this guy to point out problems no matter what, like in sales and marketing, fulfillment, because those are the three drivers that I'm super passionate about, like training, sales, you know, being able to, you know, market, you know,
and you got the skill set.
and you know, a third of that is already nailed in.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, I I think I made up my mind.
I think I
Find
have too.
find big next thing and just go for it.
I agree. And there's risk either way you go, right? And there's also
Yeah.
benefit either way you go. And so I think everything that you're talking about, you're looking for a role that something is already built. Right. So if you wanted to be in that position of what you're talking about, you have to build a business up to that level to then be at that. It's way quicker to go step into a business that way. And
Yeah.
so I agree with you. What 100%, I think you did make your decision. And, you know, that's really where, once we make a decision, it's crazy how much weight comes off our shoulder. Like I just saw it in your face too, like, oh my gosh, I think I just made a decision. You can just,
Yeah.
okay, because I'm not thinking about it, you know,
And like
and
the smoke is gone.
yeah, you know, and it's a clear path now. And one of the things I do very regularly, I started doing this when I was about your age. Yeah, there's plenty of things I put up on the shelf to move and to do something else. Not that I'm not going to come back to it. Like starting my own business, I wanted to do that way earlier in my life, but I had to put that in the shelf for a little bit. I had to get to a point where now I'm ready to really do that. You know, another thing that I do, it's actually a helium balloon. There are certain things that you think about, like let's just use fishing as an example. Let's say being a professional fisher was something that you're like, oh my, I want to do it. And like that's not realistic. That's not going to give me the life I want. No, it's a passion of mine to do outside of work. So in those type of scenarios, I actually blow it into a helium balloon and let it go. So now it's not weighting me down. It's completely gone. It's out of the equation. I don't have to ever think about it, worry about it again. And I can focus on what matters. And I think there's a lot of businesses, a lot of opportunity out there for you to really truly step into that. And what a really good, powerful place that could be for you in your own learning as well. Right? Because when you step into certain businesses, depending on what it is, there's a whole lot of missing parts that you're not going to see until you get in there. And you get to see the inner workings of a business that way. Also, if you're up in that level too, you're going to be learning from other people. And that's where different skill sets come in, different passions, different like drivers. Okay, and it can be a really powerful situation. That's where, like I said, I love being an entrepreneur as well. When I can be in a position and help the company grow or help solve problems or be part of the solution rather than just someone that's sitting waiting for the problem to
Yeah.
be fixed. I don't like that. That's one of my skill sets is being a visionary. One is very strategic thinking. And then another top part of the way that my brain works from assessments I've taken is I see patterns where other people don't. I can connect dots really fast and fix problems really quick. So if those three skill sets are top of my skill set, if I'm in a role, I just have to put my head down and shut up and follow what the next step in the protocol is. I can't function there. My brain goes crazy.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm exhausted doing nothing essentially. Right. And I know that the way that your brain works, being so analytical, I think stepping in and just having work to do and go right at it. And that's the scary part for you, right? Like, oh my gosh, to do this, I'm gonna have to put this much effort in, this much work in. That means that these things are gonna have to go because I can't fit it all. Because you can improve your productivity to a certain point, but you'll break at a certain point too.
Yep.
And it might not be here you break, might not be your mind you break, it might not be your body you break, might not be any of that, but all of a sudden you can't do the job over here that you were hired to do. And you can't, and that not that that's a failure, but all of a sudden now it's gone, right? Or
Yeah.
these other things, they're only half-assed. If you're half-assing something and you're putting your name and your reputation on either side, where does that take you? Uphill, or is that just dig a grave?
You're stagnating, digging a grave.
Yep.
I totally hear you. And, looking at, cause, coming into this game and into this call, I always thought that I had an emotional thinking. I was that emotional buying person, but I realized that I might actually be more analytical due to the data and the way that I organize my decisions. But I think, if we look back at all of the offers that I've been on, I've managed to make myself irreplaceable.
Yeah.
Right. At this current gig where I'm at now with 4 hours, 3 hours a day, irreplaceable. I don't see how they will be managed to replace me.
Yeah.
And there's been no discussion about, anything that I've done, because there's a 90% success rate across the board of everything, of everyone that joined. There's
Yep.
never been, this high ever before I took the entire thing over. And they even tried to get me involved into their other companies. So, I mean, that's a sign that I'm doing something right.
Correct.
Right. So, no half-assed, and I, can feel in my chest that is accurate, right? Because I'm at a point now where the company, my own offer is, I'm getting these conversations, and I'm also at a point of, hey, I kind of want to let that go and approach this thing, keep learning, keep developing, because I know that I've proved it to myself, right? I've now already proved it to myself that, all right, so 2 years of sales, I know enough, I know a sufficient amount to, make it happen.
Yep.
Right. But now it's like all of the other smaller details that comes around running a company, which has always been, the end goal. Because I never let go of the agency. I put it on the shelf. 2 years, learn sales, boom. And now I'm here. Let's look at my shelf again. It's going to continue with the same thing now. The exact same thing is what I'm noticing. That's a pattern.
You said, hey, maybe I'm not an emotional buyer. You might just be a logical one. It's funny. I think about 3 months ago, I don't remember who I was speaking with, but I always thought I was an emotional buyer.
Yeah.
And everybody is. Right? The science shows everyone buys an emotion and you justify with logic later. And I always was careful, like, oh, the emotional part. But myself, I've never jumped onto a sales call with somebody where I had not already made up my mind to buy. I saw an ad, it got me emotional. But that ad did a couple different things. Either I'd been researching and thinking about stuff for a while. So now it showed up. I'm like, okay, I need to research these people, go in and research. That it's a whole emotional roller coaster and all logic all pulled into one. So if I jumped on a sales call with somebody, it's because I was planning on buying. If I didn't buy, it's because that salesperson messed up. Or once I really found out what was going on in the back end, fulfillment wise, or whatever it might be, I'm like, no, it's actually not a fit for me. But every single time, I mean, if you talk to some of the people, I mean, I reach out and go, hey, XYZ. Within a couple messages back and forth, there's a link to either book a call or a link to buy, right? Because I've already made that decision up. And so I think you are very much an emotional buyer, but I think also it's very logical and look at both. And I think more people need to understand that about themselves. Also, if they are doing sales, of understanding with the other person and figuring out, what has been this emotional, logical roller coaster you've been on for the past 6 minutes or 6 years, right? Like it all depends on what you're kind of solving. And when I see you talk about the creating, the coaching, the building, the analytics, like your face changes, right? Like you can tell that, oh my gosh, this really excites me. I want to go in and do this. So that's an emotional aspect. So the logic part now is which logically makes the most sense for me now, for where I want, and that can be, we were just talking earlier about your vision board has changed. Right. And that's a big thing too, of looking at like, what do I want my life to actually look like? Because like one of the current roles you have right now is 4 hours in and out. You start your own business, it might be 16 hours in and out. You go work for somebody else, it might be 16 hours in and out or another 4 hours in and out. So you have to take some of those in consideration, and you put in a post about you're able to take Thursday off and just go fishing all day. That's a huge part of like, if I'm going to work somewhere, what type of flexibility do I have? Right? If you tell me jump and I just automatically say how high, I am willing to do that. But I'm also going to ask, if I say I need to do this, you need to also be, have that same respect put back to where if I want to take a Thursday to go off, go fishing, I should have the ability to do that. Now, if I'm taking every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday off to go fishing, and someone's dying, obviously it doesn't work. But, having that freedom and flexibility to do that is really important to me. So looking at your overall vision board now, how do you actually want your life to be set up? Because the other thing is, if you go work for somebody else and you put some of the things on the shelf, now you can get hyper focused on just one thing and opens up the rest of your life to do other things. And that can be a really powerful place as well, because now you can be continuing to learn, continue to develop, enjoy other passions, live life, right? Because life isn't always just about being in business, just whether selling or growing or scaling, coaching, lifting people up, figuring out marketing, branding, going through all those pieces. Life's not just about that. Now, at your age, you might want your whole life to be about that, because like, hey, the next 5 years, I'm going to do this to set myself up for this type of life. So those type of variables need to be a part of your equation and your thought process as well.
Oh yeah. They absolutely are. I don't think there will ever be a work-life balance for me, because whenever I work, it still feels like it's like going to fishing.
Yeah.
And when I show up I do 3 group calls a day. No, 3 group calls a week. And whenever I show up for those group calls, I don't plan the meets. I just show up and I take notes with them live and I talk about the topic.
Yeah.
So I'm really just, if I wanted to, I could only do 3 hours a week. but like it's me showing up on those calls is like going fishing. Like it's the same vibe.
Yeah.
But I like to go in fishing because then, you know, it's just like I can go do it with my friends, like childhood friends, like I did yesterday. And that's another level of relaxation compared to this one. So there's other different levels to it. I, you know, all the way up to in the near next 5 years, I'd rather take no trips, no luxuries, buy no new materials, buy no new clothes, and just work my ass off. That's my mindset, and I'm happy doing it because I'm keep you know, I have a quite a high standard of work, but also internal pressure that doesn't put me at shame if I miss like a milestone. I rather learn from it. I don't get guilt. I don't feel disappointed. I don't feel, you know, like I need to justify things. It's just like a learning lesson. So when I'm out here and just you know, doing this stuff, I don't mind putting in like 18 hours on like a project because it's really not a project. It's still a passion.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I actually just put a post about that today, obsessed is a word used by lazy people, right? And someone that's disciplined and enjoys what they do. And there are plenty of times, yeah, in my life where sitting down for 12, 16 hours, a couple days in a row to knock something down, it's energizing as well. Right. It's when you're doing things you don't want to do that's exhausting, or if you're not moving forward, which is exhausting. And finding that passion and the things that you can do that, not that you have to, but knowing that you're able to be in that space, that just brings a whole nother type of elevation to your life and who you are and who you become in. And you know
that efforts continues as well because I haven't stopped, you know, at just work, right? I'm keep leveling up personally too.
Yeah.
I started monk mode again this week on Tuesday.
Beautiful.
And I made it even tougher than last time, and I'm going to break the record, right? Which the record for last time is 146 days straight. I'm gonna aim for 150 days straight. It's recommended to not go, you know, past 90 days, but really for me, everything is a challenge. Like I wake up like, boom, challenge, let's go. I made it even tougher than last time. So, you know, I think obsession, I don't, you know, if obsession is the right word, or I know stupidity, or, you know, dedication is the right word, commitment, you know, there's just like a driver for me to do these things. I don't understand why, because I don't see it within, for example, my cousins.
Yeah.
I don't see it anywhere else. All the things that I'm doing, all the things that I'm setting up myself as, I showed my schedule for this week to one of my coaching clients because I always love transparency. I always praise that, you know, even though people become coaches, you should be doing the things that you're, you know, teaching. So I showed him my calendar. He was like, holy shit. What's that? What's that? What's this? Oh, that's my networking. Oh, that's my monk mode. I always want to work on my inner self. Oh, why do you have a weekend march, right? Like weekend march, like you're walking 10 miles each weekend. Oh,
Yep.
because of monk mode. Why? Discipline.
Yep.
And it seems to not have penetrated through yet, but it totally makes sense for me to do it. Like do all these things.
Yeah. And with where you're at right now, you're a single guy, no kids, right? So you have the time, and not that kids and being you know, having a significant other gives you a reason not to accomplish things at all. I kind of just talked about that. It was crazy how many clients over my history with health and wellness, how many people told me, well, I can't eat healthy. I can only eat macaroni and cheese because that's all my kids will eat for dinner. Like that's just like the mental thought process of that, saying I have to eat macaroni and cheese because that's all my kids eat. It's crazy thinking, right? And everyone can see that, but it's funny when we can't see it in ourselves. Now, the thing is, with the way that you operate and who you are, don't ever suppress any of that. Don't ever, and maximize that for what you can now. And that's what you're doing. And you're always trying to improve in some area. And I'm a big fan of Jocko Willink. And, he talks about self-discipline is where you get freedom. Right? Because when you're not disciplined, you're basically being controlled by the world, outside forces, instead of taking personal self-control of your actions. Now, all of the things that you're putting into like a monk mode, you have, and I've done this in periods as well, and I'm getting ready to do this again for the rest of the year of, hey, these are my expectations. This is a list of things of everything I get done every single day for my personal growth, physical growth, spiritual health, business, sales, making money, relationship with family, friends, girlfriend, all that type of stuff, that you have to schedule that stuff. That's where the freedom comes in. Now, it sounds kind of stupid that, hey, 10 miles over the weekend. Well, if you didn't schedule it, you wouldn't do it.
Yep.
And that's the biggest problem with a lot of people, is they have the plan. I'm going to do this stuff, never schedule it, therefore it never gets done. That's what starts eating us alive. And it's one thing that energizes you. And it's ironic that you kind of just said, wake up in the morning, because actually this morning I was thinking, if the hardest thing for most people every single day is getting out of bed and going out of bed, here's the next thing to do, and have that laid out. One of my mentors, he's very, very successful man, talked about his whole life. He's in his 60s now. His kids, his grandkids probably never have to work in our day in their life because of him starting from nothing and building the empire and legacy he has. Now his kids have taken things over. The grandkids probably so doing that whole thing. And, the big thing he always said is, the same thing of like we were talking about. Every night when he went to bed, he couldn't wait to go to bed because he worked his ass off all day. But the reason why he couldn't wait to go to bed was to get a full night's rest so he could start at it again tomorrow. How you feel that day is up to you. We've all got the same 16 hours a day if we sleep 8, or 18 if we sleep 6. One of my good friends, a couple of years ago when I started working with him, we kind of always joke, I would send him a clip on like Jocko, Andy Frisella, or David Goggins, or somebody of that nature. The one was from our Schwarzenegger we was talking about in his early days, where he was doing concrete work. He was working out twice a day, 2 hours every single day. He was doing acting lessons, this type of thing. And he's like, you don't need 8 hours of sleep. You just need to sleep faster, right? Like sleep 6 hours, 4 hours, just sleep faster. And so that used to always kind of be our joke. And at times we all know sleep is extremely healthy, right? Like, honestly, it's one of the most important things you can do for recovery, for optimization, focus, all of those type of things, performance. So no, you shouldn't go like 3 days without sleeping, or 2 hours every single night in a week to get stuff done, because you'll realize you didn't get any productive. And so finding that balance there is really key. But if you don't have things scheduled, you never get the things done. Yeah. And it's one of the things that helps me with my mindset, because like you said, which is something really profound, is if you don't hit something, you don't beat yourself up over it. I've had a notorious problem my whole life of mentally beating the crap out of myself. There is not a single person on the planet that could say anything bad about me to hurt my feelings, because I've said things 20 to 100 times worse to myself over and over and over for days on end, right?
Yeah.
When I'm in that situation, I'm in that situation. I'm not learning, I'm not progressing. I didn't schedule anything. I had plans to get stuff done, didn't get it done because I didn't schedule it, was wasting time, all of these type of things. I wasn't moving forward. I wasn't doing the things I wanted to do. And that's where, again, discipline gives you that freedom to really be the best version of yourself. And it really affects up here. And I think, you kind of talk about a client, well, like you didn't really understand his mindset. Well, in those times I've been like that, and if you and I were talking, you've been talking the exact same thing about me. And understand certain people are in certain seasons of their life. Why, and this actually goes tie back to, hey, what should I do with my career? Same thing with health and wellness. And I tie everything back to fitness, because all that stuff just is foundation for the way life works. And I teach people different diets or workouts. We would do it for a certain season for a specific reason. And it was to learn to get better, to make sure that your whole life is better. Right. So we might try, let's say, I'm going to tell you, hey, for the next 90 days, you're going vegan and we're exercising this way. Because you're going to learn a ton during that 90 days about what it's like to do that, how your body reacts, how you feel mentally, how you perform, all those type of things. Same thing with the exercise. And after that, we're going to do this flip-flop switch. I do the same thing if I'm coaching somebody just on mental health, spiritual health, looking at their professional growth, all of those pieces. Let's figure this out for a very specific reason. And, that's the thing. If you're deciding between your own thing or somewhere else, hey, I'm going to do this for a certain season. So you could go find an offer, say, hey, I'm going to do this for the next 18 months. Now, at the next 18 months, you might say, I'm going to do this for another 18 months, right? And so understand, sometimes I think we get stuck in the, hey, if I make the decision, it's permanent. It's not.
Yeah. No, that's really, really good. That's really good. I've never thought about it that way with seasons. I've like it's almost ties back to what JD told me, right? And it's like the sprints. So I like to do 12-week sprints. And JD was like, hey, let's do 6 weeks, because you pick up stuff so quick, right? And if you would do 6 weeks, we're able to learn everything and then adjust from there.
Yeah.
It's almost like, this thing right here. Every time that I've made a decision of, hey, let's do this, I've always thought 5 years, right? And my mind is always 5 years and 12 weeks. But now we shorten out like 18 months. Let's do it for 18 months and then decide again.
Yeah.
Because in 6 weeks, I can decide again to keep doing what I'm doing.
That's exactly it.
Another opportunity, right?
Yep. And it opens up that freedom, because again, lots of times we just get trapped in our own, hey, this is going to be permanent, or the fear of, I'm going to make the wrong choice. Well, if you went and worked somebody and it didn't work, was that the wrong choice? No, you learned something. If you go and decide not to work for anybody and do your own thing, you do that for the next 6 months and it doesn't work, and you decide to go work for somebody, you didn't fail. Again, and that's why I love your mindset. It didn't fail. It's just giving me more learning lessons. And so focusing, hey, what part of this season do I want? And to kind of, talk about that. Life's going to punch you in the face no matter what.
Yep.
Right. Like, let's be honest.
Guaranteed.
Yep. And you and I've talked about before, but if we go back like 3 years in my life, I lost everything. Literally everything in my life. And I had to start completely over. Do you think that was planned season of my life, to just have my whole life crumble, every aspect of it, mentally, physically, romantically, business wise, monetarily, everything? Just, hey, yeah, next October, why don't I just destroy everything? Let's just start over from scratch. Nobody plans
that. TNTs, right?
right. It just burn it down, right? Nobody plans that. So the same thing of understanding, no matter the decision you make, it's not a failure if it doesn't work out. There are going to be things that are going to happen in life. So you have the plan of, hey, I'm going to go work for this company. Hey, it's the next 6 months. This is what we're going to be doing, right? It's, if you kind of use Amazon, for example, like Jeff Bezos, like some of the top people in the company, aren't managing the company where it is today. They're managing it where it's going to be 3 to 5 years from now. Right. And so different thinking and mental frameworks help free you up to what you need to do, which is where you end up wanting to go. And so I think setting up that framework of, and JD gave me good advice. Hey, you get this stuff instead of 90 days, let's cut this down in 6 weeks, right? It's kind of the same thing sometimes I do with people as well. Here's our 12-month plan. Here's what we're doing each month. See how that's going to cause a result. Sweet. Let's take this month, condense it into a week, do that with every month, and let's condense a full year into 12 weeks. right? And that's kind of your monk mode. You get more done in 1 year than most people, or in 12 weeks than most people get done in 1 year. And so the power of like just looking at for what it is can greatly benefit you. And I don't think either choice is wrong.
Yep. Yep. It's fun as well if we go back to, like the like guilt and a shame and all of this stuff, right? Because I've kind of like found the sweet spot.
Yep.
And for me, finding the sweet spot and leaning towards this, sweet spot and having kind of like that as a mental model of, all right, so if I'm here, the blueprint activates. It's just, boop, it's on, right? The setting is on, and it changes the entire mindset. It's almost gone to a way, or like as far as progression goes, that I forgot about how to feel disappointed or how to disappoint myself. Is I gone so far towards the other direction that it's been so good.
Yeah.
And what one of the things is just being able to zoom out, because I know a lot of people are very short-term sighted, both like everywhere in life, really. And the question that I ask myself is like, will this, what I'm feeling, contribute to the bigger picture? That's one of the high performing sales mindsets as well. You need to manage your thoughts and emotions. And if you do that, let's start with, if you don't do that, everyone becomes a ticking time bomb emotionally, right? We're gonna just puke it all out.
Yep.
But if you're able to manage your thoughts and emotions in sales, for example, like never slumping, never getting to rot in a wall,
Yep.
and do that in your personal life and apply that to negative emotions, create that blueprint in your own mind and run with it, you're able to freaking conquer anything at that point.
Yeah. And emotions are the best thing. It's what makes us human. So I never tell somebody, try to suppress your emotion, right? Like any of that type of stuff. No, emotions are real. And that it's what
you need to read them.
Yeah. And the big thing with the emotion is having the ability to control it to a certain degree, like let it come out, right? But not dictate the rest of your day, right? Like if you fail this morning, to not let that negative failure of emotion ruin the next 24 hours. The example I used to do with some of my clients, it would be funny. They would eaten good for like 2 weeks straight, right? Then on a Friday, they bring donuts in. They end up having like 3 donuts. And then all of a sudden they just go on an eating bender for the next 2 weeks because of that one time of eating donuts, because they were so guilty on it. And so the analogy I would use, it's kind of like if your cell phone, if I'm holding my cell phone right now and I drop it on the floor, I don't then grab a hammer and then smash the phone. That's stupid, right? No, pick it up and then you just keep going. But too often we make one mistake, we let that emotional dictate us, and then it's just like smashing the phone. It's like, it doesn't make any sense when you're thinking about it as a phone, but how then it dictates all your actions, it makes total sense. And that's where understanding that, and that's where that self-discipline and that schedule comes into play. Because if you fail at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., well, 10 a.m., I'm off doing this, time to be successful again, right? And keep going that route. Yeah.
Right. It's
a tough mindset to build.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where the discipline comes into play too, because when we don't, the reason why it's hard is because majority of where that confidence comes from is by competence. That competence comes from taking action. That confidence comes from trusting yourself that you'll continue moving forward no matter what. So majority of people, once it hits, they don't progress through any of that. Right.
Yeah.
Now I'm just going to give up. So now I lost all confidence in myself. So now I'm going to doubt myself. I would try again. Then I'm just going to continue failing. And therefore they never take the action. Therefore they never become competent. Therefore they can't be, they don't reach that success. And that's just that whole negative cycle. That's all just a mental framework of how our emotions are dictating our actions.
Yeah. I'm going to put in a cheeky quote, right?
Yeah.
And it goes, think you can or think you can't. You're probably right, no matter what.
Yep. And that's, I can't love that quote anymore, because it is very true. And I can't remember who said it. And
I don't remember.
it's so hard to tell nowadays, right? Because you might be like, hey, you said that was Einstein, that was Isaac Newton, that was Confucius, that was Bill Gates, right? Like I love the quote by Abraham Lincoln. Don't believe everything you read on the internet.
Yep.
Right? Like obviously Abraham Lincoln didn't say that because there was no internet back then, but all these quotes, and I'm trying to remember too, there was another meme, and I think
You
it was
got me there. I was like, man, Abraham Lincoln said that.
I want to say it might have been like an Einstein. I, or maybe it might have been
Too many names.
I don't remember, but it was like, I've been quoted 1,000 times on memes and I didn't say a single one of them, right? Like,
Yep.
people use these quotes, but I can or I can't, either way you're correct, is 100% positive. And we see that as, you just watch a baby from birth and watch him learn how to walk, talk, live, grow, right? The reason why is because they watch someone else, like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
Right? It's just too bad the older we get, we start believing other people, oh, you can't do that. Right? It kind of goes with the whole thing where the impossible, if you just remove the I am and put a parenthesis in it, now it says I'm possible, right? It's that same mindset shift. But I think the one superpower that you do have is the moment you don't hit a benchmark, you don't immediately go into that negative spin and cycle. And
Yeah.
I think that was
Never been there for a while.
before.
I've almost forgot what it feels like.
Yeah. And a lot of people won't stay in that space long enough. And then some people then just, I don't want to say self-medicate or anything of that nature, but kind of like putting it up in a jar or putting in a balloon. Then they put their dreams in a balloon and just let the balloon go and go, okay, well, I'm just going to be comfortable. I'm just going to be satisfied with where I'm at and justify it. And that's not always a good place to be.
Man, that place sucks, right?
It does.
I'm a really big fan on being able to stand on your own 2 feet, but as I've entered coaching and mentoring a bit and like teaching like both experienced people, but also very green people, I've noticed that yes, some people do have the internal self-discipline and being able to push through those moments. But some people actually need like the external beliefs, like having someone that believes in them. And then whenever they do it, it's like, oh, you're right. I can do it. I just did it. And then you remind themselves that, all right, so you just busted through a limiting belief. How does it feel?
Yeah.
And then you guide them through how that feeling, because then they can find it again. And like that internal belief of, I believe in you. Something simple like that, like I believe in you, as someone that being looked up on, holds so much power. And I've never really realized, how much of a powerful bond leadership can create.
Yeah.
Because everything rises and falls on leadership. Like at the end of the day, it is often the problem and it is the solution.
Yeah. One of kind of going off quotes again of, it took me 10 years to become an overnight success.
Mm.
Right? Like we always celebrate the success, but the journey is never celebrated. Now, just as you were talking there, the thing that came into my mind, every self-made man I've ever met in my life, from the very successful mentor that I know to yourself, every person along the journey, every self-made man that I know, and woman for that matter, probably have 10,000 people that are holding them up. And what I mean by that is none of us are self-made.
Yeah.
Right? You and I need to communicate and help each other out. It's one thing that we loved when we first met. Right? You have tons of different mentors out there. you also now are doing that for other people, right? And everybody's lifting each other up in some aspect. And so being self-made, yeah, you got to put in the work yourself. But if you saying you're self-made, it's a complete lie, because it was built on foundations of others.
Yep. It's, other people holding you up. But if you're running a business, and since we are talking about the business owning world, your clients lift you up as well. Because there's a sense of, hey, these people, well, they aren't really reliant on you, but they're reliant on you in terms of like personal growth. And I feel that so strongly.
Yeah.
Right. I've never missed a day since I've taken leadership.
Yeah.
Right. And that leadership developed over time with, all right, so let's, find people that you're connected to, that are connected to your values and principles. And then as you get closer, I call those people my tribe. And those people are often reliant on me in terms of like the opportunities that I look for them. When I'm gone, it's like, man, it's like a huge missing piece.
Yeah.
So if I'm not showing up, right, I mean, shit will go south pretty much.
Yeah.
So a part of that is having mentors, like people that you look up to, but there's others people that look up to you that presses you even forward, that pulls you forward.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. And that's where, again, possibly working for somebody else. You have someone that's mentoring you and pulling you up, right? Again, that's why I've taken some of the jobs I did and always worked for entrepreneurs, because that was a form of mentorship.
Yeah.
Right. And leadership and those type of key aspects. Now, the other thing, the one reason why I love coaching, the reason why I love being in a leadership role and helping people out, every time I'm coaching a client, it's actually helping me. Now, that also helps build my internal accountability and self-discipline as well, right? Because if I'm, as you said earlier, hey, if I'm going to coach you on something and I'm not doing it, there's a problem.
Yep. Huge problem.
Now, that doesn't mean someone needs to be good at something to always, and here's my example. Some of the best speed coaches out there actually are completely overweight and they don't run anymore. Right? But they're still the top speed coach in the world, right? They still have the experience there. But looking at when I'm working with someone that, hey, if I'm telling them to do this, the tomorrow morning when I wake up and I don't want to do it, it's kind of the thing, I was thinking about quitting until I realized who was watching. Hey, if I give up today and I'm telling my client not to give up, is that very congruent? It's not, right?
No.
And that's always the good part too, between the having a leadership role or mentorship role. There is a type of accountability there. Now, I've had plenty of people over the years that reached out to me like, Scott, I just need to help you. I need to have you help hold me accountable. That's someone that's looking at me solving a problem, not themselves hold accountable, but as a group together, and like the Bible kind of talks about it, being yoked together, going in the same path, you can accomplish anything, right? And when you look at it, I can't remember the name of the horse, but it's a certain driving horse, and basically a workhorse, so like the strongest horse on the planet. Alone, it can move like 8,000 pounds. Two of them together, yoked together, working together, trained to work, or not trained to work together, think how many pounds do you think they can move forward together if one can do 8?
Like triple because of the speed and velocity.
Yeah, it was like 24,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Now you train them to work together, it increased even more.
Holy crap.
Right. And so that is a good thing between working with people. It's kind of the cliche of you're the sum of the 5 people closest to you. Right? Because you're all yoked together, you're going in the same direction. Now, you might not be trained together, so now you're even less effective, right? And if you're going in opposite directions, you're bringing each other down. But that's the importance of having people, and that's where, like I said, a self-made man is never. He's he's standing on a pyramid of 10,000 people have helped him
Yep.
throughout his journey in his life. And that's a very, very important thing to think about, and those type of thought processes too help you make a decision for your career, where you
Yep.
want life to be, your vision board. Because the other thing is, if you're in a certain part of your life and you're doing it for a certain season, maybe working 16 hours a day on whatever it may be might not make sense, because only 8 hours a day, because the other 8 hours are focused on something else. Just because you might not be making money or growing a business might not be a bad thing, but if it's growing you, that's what's going to make you that self-made man in the long run as well, right?
Yep.
So that's where those choices sometimes become difficult of, okay, where do I want to go now? What direction I wanted to go now, if I'm learning? And sometimes we never take a step back and assess of like, okay, what do I really want? Which was so awesome to hear that that's kind of what you did, like step back and like, hey, here's what my vision board really is, and changing certain things, because that really lets you go on priority, because your career, our positions, what you and I both do inside businesses and within our own, it's not like a 9-to-5 corporate job that we're going to be at for the next 40 years of our life. It's a totally different animal, totally different entity. And so if we're not self-reflecting and making changes on a regular basis, you can end up sinking real fast.
Yep. And it's very important to find your tribe too. I kind of have a different perspective when it comes to accountability groups, and I like your opinion on that. But I think accountability systems are great, but what matters is the mindset walking towards one. So for example, I made a post, can't remember if it was like 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, but it was, if you are, I'm trying to remember, if you're relying on someone else to check on you, to make sure that you're doing like these certain set of tasks, or hit these certain set of goals, you need to take a look in the mirror, because you should be able to hold yourself accountable if that is connected with like your vision and purpose. Because who wouldn't want to do that for you? Just do it overall. Like, because it's your purpose. So kind of like had some mixed up comments, and maybe there is personality types and different crowds and all of that stuff that figures into this. But I have that very set into my mindset that, hey, if this thing isn't motivating myself and I need someone else to have me and make me hit my own purpose, then I need to recheck my purpose, because it should be a natural driver. In one moment. So in accountability groups, how I look at things is not, hey, Scott, can you make sure that I do this? But it's more of like competition. It's more of like friendly competition. So between Steven, Marcus, and I, if we set a fitness challenge, we all report our numbers. Like, we all make sure we all are already doing what we are supposed to do. But where the accountability comes from is like, Scott just ran 7 miles. Let's just run 9 today. I'm going to beat him by 2 miles. Marcus did 42 push-ups in a row. I can only do 30. Let's just push myself the next, 2 weeks where I can do 50. Or, hey, this person made, 70 dials. I'm going to triple that amount. Like that, that's my perspective on accountability groups.
You're 100% right. And here's kind of my perspective on accountability groups. Number one, I'm going to give perceptions of accountability groups. I'm going to give a couple examples first. So I see people all the time, they'll post, hey, who wants to role play with me? I don't want to role play with anybody. It's a brand new salesperson, because it's not going to do anything for me. Right? That's like you and me going, hey, let's get together and practice brain surgery. And in 6 months, we're going to be able to be the best doctors in brain surgery. No, we have no idea how to do it. Right? It's the blind leading the blind. And there was actually, I'm trying to remember, it was one of those daytime television shows with a bunch of women on. I don't even know if it's on TV anymore, if it is or not. They had a very famous fitness professional on it. And I remember seeing a clip from it because after backstage, like the ladies on the panel were all talking, you know, and they're all overweight. They're all like, oh yeah, let's start an accountability group and we're going to blah, blah, blah. And he overheard that and he walked up and goes, none of you know how to be successful, otherwise you'd be there. The only thing you're holding yourself accountable to is to stay in where you're at. So,
Damn.
you know, talking about like what you just did with the competition part. Okay. I think that is an important piece, right? Hey, and some of it, yes, true. Now, if you and I were doing an accountability group and you're talking about Marcus run 7, you go run 9, and I go run 100 because I'm an ultra marathon runner, what's that hold you guys accountable for? You're not going to go out and run 100 this weekend if I
Oh
did,
no.
right?
Let's take a look at all the other things. Speed, right?
And that's the thing. And so when I look at an accountability group, and if I'm going to be in an accountability group, let's say you and I start an accountability group. I'm going to go, David, you have to allow me to once a week punch you in the throat. And I'm going to ask you to do the same thing to me. Now, what I mean by that, at the beginning of the week, you and I are holding each other accountable. Here's what I'm going to do this week. Now, when we meet at the end of the week, of you being brutally honest with me of where I fell short, help me to where I can get better, and help lift me up in areas that I'm struggling. That's accountability, right? Like you said, if it's just rah-rah, let's go do this together, it's a blind leading a blind. Now, if you're going to hold me accountable to what I say I'm going to do, and I come back and I don't do it, that's accountability, right?
Yep.
Now, if you add that competition piece and like, hey, we're all going to run 3 days a week. Okay, where are you at? Well, I can run 10 miles. Well, I can only run 1 mile. I can run 5 miles. Okay, by the end of the week, here's where we're going to go. Here's where you get better. Next week, you ran 12. Then instead of 5, it's 7. Instead of 1, it's 3. That's getting better, right?
Yep.
Dude, I didn't run the 3. Well, dude, why not? Well, after I hit a mile, I just didn't want to go any further. Is that really a good reason? Right? So let's work through that. So that's more what I see the accountability when I say a throat punch of going, you told me you were going to do this. You didn't do it. It goes back to the cliche. You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yep.
You can tell me what to do. I can tell you that you're not doing it. I can't make you do any of it. You've got to do that. But where can you get better? What were you struggling with? How to overcome it? And then go from there. Right. And maybe then, the second week, well, dude, I just didn't get out of bed the 3 days I was supposed to run. Maybe part of the accountability is, well, dude, I'm running at the same time. I'm calling you until you pick up. And I'm going to be on the phone with you for 5 minutes as you tie your shoes and go out the freaking door. Right? You did some accountability there, but I wouldn't know you need that accountability unless I punched you in the throat last week. Or vice versa, right?
Yep.
So that's kind of my take on accountability groups. And too often I see groups get together and I'm not going to be a part of it. I'm not going to hang around with a bunch of just talk of people talking for sake and not having anything really tangible to come out of it. Right. Yeah. And that accountability group is kind of like coaching, but just not as deep of a level, right? It's support more or less. And giving that honest criticism back to hopefully that propels you forward of like, yeah, I promise to do. And that's the other thing. Sometimes too, it could be the accountability of, hey, I promised to do all this stuff. I didn't get 30% of it done. I can't operate and do all of that, right? As an example, if you in monk mode and you put somebody else, hey, you're going to copy my schedule and do exactly what it is in a weekend, right? They're not going to be able to do the 100% of what you do. So if they're trying to compare themselves or compete with that, they're going to fail drastically. But if their target goals are 70% of that and they can achieve that and that's their 100%, that's amazing. Now where can we go one a little bit, bigger? And so that's where we have to be careful of the competition. You're not competing against what the person can do. You're competing against yourself and watching what somebody else can do. And maybe that motivates you to go that one step further. I spend 10 more minutes learning. I'm going to spend 30 more minutes practicing. I'm going to run an extra half a mile, whatever, those little bit. David went out and did it. I'm going to go freaking do it too.
I mean, that's
threshold.
I involve that a lot with goal setting, right? Because if we, zoom out again, because accountability groups oftentimes are labeled as weekly check-ins, right? So we see everything as weekly challenges from just the label of it. But if we connect like the entire, habit of a successful person, which is goal setting, and it's, we look at how do we set goals, realistic, time sensitive, and attainable, right? If, for example, I see Marcus do something like running 100 miles, for example, let's take something super extreme. And I know that I'm a, 26, casual marathon runner. I'm not going to say, hey, next week I'm going to go 100% and beat his record because my lungs would crash. But it's more of like internally of, all right, so this guy is at that level. I know it's possible. I'm seeing someone who's starting, at my age and can beat this record. I know I can. So it's like the setting the, almost having the patience of, hey, if I even push through to 35, that's a win for me. Because I know if I continue like this, like intensity from just seeing like the friendly competition, I know that I'll go past Marcus. I know that I'll, it might be in 2 years, like the plan might be in 2 years. But hey, if I even reach that level, like remotely close, I count that as a win. Like sometimes, if I run 5 miles or Steven just starting out running and he tries to run 5 miles, just having the mindset of, dude, if I can get my first mile, no matter if I run or jog or walk, my first mile this week, like nonstop, like not taking any breaks, that's a win for me. Then next week, he tries to run the entire mile without stop. The other week than that, let's increase it. And then because if he's intensively, almost like intentionally putting intensity to reach a certain point, boom, it's going to happen because you put word and energy towards reaching this one like bullseye goal. That's how I see accountability groups with competition. It's very similar to, how you put it. And I like the way that you describe the entire thing of it, like the concept, because understanding the concept helps so much.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're doing that with all three of you guys, and knowing all three of you. You guys are in a really good place to say, hey, let's do an accountability group, and you're all leveling each other up. It's not that you're all in the same level playing field with everything in life, right? But there are a lot of similarities. And the big thing there is, again, comparing yourself to somebody else is very detrimental, right? So using that 100-mile analogy is a perfect one. And again, certain things that people can do, whether it's business, personal, physical, whatever it may be, what someone can do, 100%. A human can do it. So that means I could do it. Do I have a desire to do that? Is the other question that has to be asked, right? Because if I say, hey, David, by the end of the next 60 days, I'm going to go out and run 100 miles. So me starting from here every single week, now I want you to hold me accountable. If I don't actually want to run 100 miles, which I don't want to ever do that, do you think I'm really going to train to do that? No. And so every single week I'm going to fail. You're going to punch me in the throat and I'm going to beat myself up like, but that's where sometimes emotion and why and reason, doing things for a certain season, all those pieces all matter to build that, strong foundation of moving forward and wherever you're at and kind of planning out career, planning out life, planning out things.
That's the biggest takeaway. Like I like how we were able to, from this cluster smoke in my mind, get to a decision. But I think my biggest takeaway from this talk is the seasons, right? Seasons, reasons, and this.
Yeah.
Right. That's my biggest takeaway with hey, you're not doing like the decisions that you make, decisions might be connected to, well, this will change my life forever, like going to the military, this will change my life forever, which no, you're taking this decision for this season now, and we have time to peel back the layers and then adjust.
Yeah.
It's like the mindset of flexibility of some sort.
Yeah.
I don't like that word, but it's practically that way.
Yeah, it's kind of more the fluid be water, my friend, right? Type of situation. And it's not always being flexible, right?
Yeah.
It's making a decision. And using the military as an example. Hey, I'm signed for the military for the next 2 years. This isn't permanent. But you did say one thing that was sort of incorrect. You said, hey, this isn't going to change my life. Doing the military for that 2 years will change the rest of your life. Right. And so in one direction or another, and those are the decisions that, when you start looking at things, hey, what if I do this? And if we say, hey, a company calls you up, says, David, I want you to come in and do this role. It's a perfect role of what you want to do. We want you to come in. Cool. Awesome. That majority of the people there stay there for like 1 to 5 years. It doesn't mean you need to stay there 1 to 5 years.
Yep.
Right. But making that decision is going to change the direction of your life because of the experience, everything that happens during that time frame, those type of key moments. We can't always gauge where that's going to take us. And that's the one thing, and I think we've talked about before, lots of times we have a target of A, and this is what success is to us. We hit a B, so we think it's a failure. But in reality, because of what we learned at B, it actually allowed us to progress up here. So it was actually more successful by not hitting the number one target in the long run.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of the concept of failing faster, fail forward. How quickly can you fail? The more you fail, the more you get to the point of getting to success, right? Like if you look at the light bulb, 10,000 times, right? You want those 10,000 times to be 10,000 days or 1,000 days. So you could try one day for the next 10,000 times, or try 10 times a day, 1,000 days. It's a big difference, huge difference in the grand scheme of things, right? And that's where having like a 5-year goal can be really good. A lot of people overestimate what they can get done in 1 year, and they completely underestimate what they can get done in 10. And it is
I've done that.
So.
I've had a problem for I think 2 months ago, and that was because I sit down every Sunday and I set goals for the week coming, and I also set daily goals and daily tasks all in my schedule. That's why my schedule is all scheduled out for the week every Sunday, right? And I had this problem of I'm hitting my goals before the deadline, right? Way before the deadline, like 3 days before. I had 3 days left. So it's like, I'm giving myself too much time, right? Which I don't know why I said this, but I had a connection to what we spoke about, which I lost now. Lost the train of thought. But yeah, that was the problem that I had, and we, that was kind of like also like a realization moment of, am I challenging myself enough? Am I, doing this right? Can I do more? Can I do it better? Can I do it? All the different questions just came up from that. And I mean, it's a different problem to have, because usually I'm missing my deadlines.
Yeah.
And now this was something new with, hey, I'm giving myself too much time to get this goal done. All of a sudden I sit on Thursday and have another hour block of doing this. Like, got this done yesterday.
And that's the importance of setting goals, right? Because some of you're going to accomplish way quicker, and lots of times it's going to take way longer. It's
Yep.
not by the way you hit the time frame and the target. Now, certain things 100%, this is the target, we have to hit it right, but understanding, hey, when we get to that time slot, that's where, hey, what did I, one of my favorite quotes that I kind of post and quote about a lot is, I never lose. I either win or I learn. Right. So what can I learn from this situation? Good, the bad, the ugly, from everything, because that's the stuff that's going to progress me forward. Therefore, I win in every situation. I'd rather sometimes learn the good, the bad, and ugly than actually win and hit my target, because hitting my target, oh, I planned everything out and it worked exactly what I want. You didn't learn anything because you planned it out, right? You planned it out and actually got the result. That means everything that you knew and you planned out, it worked the way that it should. That means you didn't have to learn anything. You didn't progress, right? So in every failure is actually the bigger win sometimes in a lot of situations.
Yeah. There's been a lot of fails, a lot of mistakes.
You and me both.
Gotta make more. All right, man. It's been a nice chat, nice TED talk from both sides. I mean, we've been going ham. I think this is going for another an hour and a half.
I think you're right. And I wish we would keep going, but I think that's a good place to end. And, like I kind of said earlier, I've got, I'm bummed I have an appointment coming up here in 15 minutes, but like when we first booked it, I said, hey, dude, I'm booking out 2 hours because hours is never enough for us. So always chatting to 10 to 20 minutes beforehand.
It's
And
perfect time. We found the sweet spot.
Yeah, we did. So congratulations on your catching fish this past week.
Oh, hell yeah. Got two.
Yeah, congratulations. And same thing with everything that's happening in your life, man. It's so good to hear. And I can't wait for our next one of these as well.
Looking forward for it.
Me too. So have a good weekend. We'll talk later.
All right. Talk soon.